SEC teams had a rough weekend. The playoffs are up for grabs, and more on this week's Tailgate. Hey, I'm Luke with the Tailgate. You can follow me at LBW Tailgate. Here with Dennis.
Hey, I'm Dennis. You can go ahead and follow me.
And I'm Michael. And before we get started tonight, of course, we wanted to shake things up a little bit this week. That's why the intro is a little different. But it was great. Lucas did a great job. And but before we get started this week, we wanted to go ahead and just do a quick shout out to our sponsor tonight, which is Explore Tours. If you are interested in any kind of local walking tours or educational tours or adventure tours for the Middle Tennessee area, Explore Tours has got you covered. Check them out at exploretours.com. So, guys, we had a fun week too.
Fun weekend.
Well, I guess fun is an interesting word to use.
Well, I mean, it depends on who you're cheering for.
True.
Because
yeah.
For the casual fan, this was a wonderful weekend to watch some football.
Yeah.
For some people in south of Tennessee, kind of like between Georgia and
True. Yeah.
the other
right.
whatever's on the other side.
geography.
Alabama. Alabama. You were not. If you're Alabama, you didn't have fun this weekend.
Yeah, you're pretty much the only team that. Well, actually, people in Tennessee didn't have a great time this weekend either, but we still won. So.
Right. So
Barely.
Yeah.
A win's a win.
It was a rough win. It's an ugly win.
But yes, but Texas,
anyways.
Alabama.
Yeah.
Man,
that's
what
the
a game. What a game. I mean,
such a good game.
it was, I think there was a stat that showed at one point it was 4 minutes played and 4 touchdowns between the two teams. Nice little shootout. You know, you
Yep.
had Matthew McConaughey on the side of Texas, just
Right, all right, all right.
all right. Just getting that Texas team all
Right.
loosened up, and Ewers
Yeah,
was feeling it.
he was.
And I would like to say that Ewers is a guy that I have been calling
One more time.
Ewers.
Okay, just want to make sure we were talking about the same person.
I practiced this week.
Yeah.
But, this is the guy that I was touting this week. You know, Archie needs to stay on the bench a little bit longer because he is doing some damage out there.
Yeah. Well, and I think like the thing that stood out to me the most is the way that they approached the game going into it, the way that they addressed it afterwards. It's like, it's just another game, guys. We have to see all of our opponents like in Alabama.
Yeah.
We can't just automatically just go, oh, hey, this is the big game, and then we just need to, we'll if we win this, then we'll be good the rest of the season. They're going to actually. It seems like they're going to really take this entire season seriously, and their culture is in such a healthy place where it's literally just going to be them like week in and week out bringing their A game, which makes for fun football.
Yeah. It seems like they're not going to go put on cruise control.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I mean, if anything, this kind of sets the tone for the rest of the season. So early win like this, I feel like they should have no problem going undefeated the rest of the year.
Well, and in different, Ewers is now like. I am saying his name correctly
Just
as many
emphasis.
times as I can.
You're going to say it all
Ewers.
night.
He's like, Ewers.
But Ewers now, like in Heisman, in the Heisman talk, like he is just kind of shot up there as this, like maybe he might be there to this, like okay, keep doing what you did against Alabama, and you're going to be there.
Yeah, and I could see that. Like he's a great game manager. He seems to think through things a lot more, and like. The difference between him and a Caleb Williams is Caleb Williams is going to put up a bunch of stats. And so he's naturally going to look really good from a stat perspective, but Quinn Ewers is going to, if the value of the wins they're going to have, if they're able to go 12-0 or 11-1 this season, the value of their wins are going to be so much more. It's going to make his stat sheet look maybe weaker, but more valuable.
Right. So the sum of the whole is going to be a lot more.
Exactly.
A lot better for him.
Yeah. It's like you get 10 ounces of gold versus 10 ounces of silver kind of thing. So it's I can easily see like him him beating out a Caleb Williams run year 2, like for Heisman or even a Bo Nix, who has been balling out. Just,
Bo Nix is really impressive.
Yeah. And so, but like it kind of would go with like if Rattler, if they're later this weekend, was able to pull an upset against South Carolina or against Georgia at South Carolina.
South Carolina,
they would upset themselves if they upset themselves. That would be interesting. But if they beat out Georgia, like which again, that's not one of our upsets this week, so you got to stay tuned. But
or is it?
Dun dun dun. But essentially, like if Rattler is able to also pull that upset and see some of their season turn around, even if they only have an 8-4 season, he can still easily be a contender. So like
especially with the quality of wins, like
exactly, and that's the thing that I think Ewers is going to work well for him, is that his quality of wins are going to work better in his favor than what USC has got or what Oregon's got right now.
I mean, even especially in this game right here, it wasn't just like, don't get me wrong, he played great the whole game, but you could definitely see like 2 passes right off the bat I could think of where like he made highlight plays versus a really good team. So
exactly,
it's stuff you can't ignore.
Exactly. But speaking of another Texas team that didn't do so hot. Texas A&M versus Miami. Now, I know there's been a lot of people giving Texas A&M some flack for like, oh, they didn't look very good or anything like that. I'm like, okay, one, we have to remember that Miami going into this year was, I think, 5th best odds to win the ACC, and I think it's still there. I think they're still there, and so we're not talking about like a Clemson or a FSU like ACC team. We're talking about mid-tier ACC team who has definitely made the right steps to improve significantly over their previous years. And I applaud them. They came in with the proper game plan. They've got a great head coach there. They've got a great offensive coordinator there. They've honestly, their quarterback Van Dyke, is that?
I think so. Tyler Van Dyke,
Like made some dime clutch plays like during that game, and it was gorgeous. Like they did exactly what they needed to do when they needed to do it, and they just outcoached Texas A&M. But Texas A&M didn't roll over. They still
didn't.
They did get beat. They did, like on the defensive side, they did get beat a couple different times. They did get burned a couple different times. They didn't really show themselves being able to tackle well properly, but they still stayed in the game for the majority of it. They just kind of shot themselves in the foot a couple different times.
There were a couple big, just mindset, there's just things that you can't do. So few calls here or there, a few changes in kind of how they performed here and there, and they're right back in that game and possibly winning that game. Like you said, Tyler Van Dyke was amazing. They had a receiver. I think his name is Restrepo, number 7.
Oh,
I
yeah.
believe.
Oh, yeah.
Who had like some great catches. He looks really good. He's not quite on the level of Jalen Lucas from Indiana for me yet.
Fair enough.
But that's Jalen Lucas has been my guy. But yeah, he was looking good. So yeah, Miami looked really good. Texas A&M just got outplayed. I mean, and sometimes that happens where you can do a lot of right things. You can look good. You can make good plays, and they just got outplayed. Yeah,
and I think Texas A&M, for them, this is going to be the wake up call of whether or not they're going to bounce back later this season, because they've got some tough games ahead of them. They have to play Alabama again, and Alabama just lost, but that doesn't mean that Alabama's out. Like we're only 2 games in, so Alabama's got a lot of games left to play, and. But Texas A&M has to play Alabama. They have to come to Tennessee and play Tennessee at Tennessee, which is rated by most Alabama players, over the past 15 years as the most hostile place to play in the SEC. So,
and when that's beating out LSU in Florida,
that's impressive. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean,
that's impressive.
When I was at Neyland a couple years ago, I want to say that the according to the decibel reading, it was at 130 decibels.
Oh, wow.
Now, I think that was wrong, because I'm pretty sure that would blow away a Guinness World Record. But I do know that it was so loud that you could hear very clearly the the crowd on the other side of the river. Away from the stadium, and they were making noise. They were filing noise complaints with the city police, with the Metro Police of Knoxville, because of how loud they were. And so obviously they do get loud and rowdy.
Yeah. And obviously not everybody in that city is a Tennessee fan.
That's also true. I'm like, but
you
you
live
know,
so close then, like
exactly.
Right.
They could just move somewhere else. Yeah, just go back to where you came from.
Keep those kids quiet.
That's right. But you know, I think we will see the caliber of team and the coaching staff that Texas A&M has, how they respond and rebound from this particular loss. Because while it stings, you know, because they got 48 points hung up on them,
something like that. Yeah,
you know, 48 points hung up on them from Miami. Like, again, we have to remember, it's not a down Miami team this year. It's a Miami team that really could be good, like could actually vie for the ACC. They're in talks for that.
Well, and much like Alabama, there's a lot of football left to play this year.
Exactly.
Like, things can change week to week, and so like you got to keep playing because you never know who's going to lose and who's going to win in front of you.
Exactly.
So you just got to keep going.
And so, like, if they're able to do any kind of rebounding or whatnot this year, you know, they could. I don't think we're going to see a playoff team out of them, but we could easily see a bowl team out of them, which is something that they didn't have last year.
If they don't get a bowl, that'd be really disappointing season for them, like entirely.
Yes.
I mean, if they don't get a bowl, I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing that buyout clause really start being exercised.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're going to probably be tired of Jimbo Fisher at that point. Because that'd be how many years of not going to like bowl games and doing like not really vying for the West, and the West is wide open right now.
Right.
Especially with Bama losing. So, but we've got one other like major recap from our previous games of the week. You know, we had it was Colorado versus Nebraska, right?
Yeah, I mean that game. Honestly, the first half, I'm not gonna lie, I was really kind of disappointed in terms of like the last few minutes in the second quarter. I feel like Colorado finally started waking up and kind of scoring touchdowns, and then literally second half, it was just their game. Like Nebraska had didn't show up. Their Nebraska's quarterback, I really felt. I know I was texting you guys where we were talking. I was like, Nebraska's quarterback should have been pulled out. I feel like by mid second quarter because he seemed shaken, even though the game was still like anyone's game to be really cold.
Well, and I think I mentioned like in the chat, I was like, man, this looks like Nebraska's actually showing some weakness in Colorado, and then right after that, Colorado started ramping it up and actually hitting their strides and stuff like that. And I was like, well, I'm gonna eat my words,
right?
Which is fine with me. I don't have a problem with eating my words.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think I said to you, my ruling on Rule right now is that he's really got to, he's got to make some changes. Something's got to happen because to get, to lose the first game the way they did.
Yep.
And then you come in and you go, okay, that was, you lost.
Yep.
Let's rebound. Let's do something. And then you just get demolished by Colorado. And we've all talked about Colorado saying they could go 1-11. They could go 6-6. They could be, there's a lot of, they could be a good team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're all over the place. I feel like they're just almost just too much of a wild card.
Right. They're a wild card. But Nebraska should not be losing to Colorado that bad, even with everything that's going on. So
True.
Matt Rule has really got to make some changes. He's really got to kind of figure out what's going on. I don't think that this is one of those you're going to be fired 4 games into your tenure with Nebraska. Nebraska's
if he continues at this rate, being 0-4, I feel like it's kind of a hard thing not to kind of look into.
It's hard not to. He's just too good of a coach, and you got to give him a couple.
A good
years.
coach is a winning coach.
True.
If you're not winning, then you're not really that good of a coach.
True.
Stat wise, for him in particular, I was actually listening to I think it was Josh Pate, and he was talking about how his first 2 years at almost every program he's been at, like the first year was kind of losing season.
It's a throwaway season.
And for him, it's always taken him a year to build that culture, to build that winning culture. And he does a good job the following year.
Anytime before present day in college football, that would have been still the rule. And the fact that the literal coach across the same field that this past week is defining that, where it's like, hey, that used to be the kind of thing where like, hey, you wait a season, you waited 2, maybe even 3. If Sanders is able to get especially a bowl game, that whole 1-2 year kind of like waiting period schools are not going to be waiting for that no more.
And the only difference between that is what we've talked about in terms of the transfer portal. Yeah. Because he brought, 22 players with him to Colorado. Deion did.
Yeah,
it was something like that.
I think it was like 80.
Transferred in other players from other places. So it's a little difficult to kind of put them on the same level because he did pull in a lot of his own players.
No, I mean I agree with you.
In the future,
our school's going to be actually caring about that. They're like, hey,
no, of course
if you're a big name coach and you have this, you should have that same kind of power.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't get me wrong, I agree with you guys in terms of like, hey, that shouldn't be a thing, but it's kind of hard not to see the result and how that's going.
100%.
Yeah. And the entire thing is like you're going to have a lot of teams, and a couple other pundits have said this. They're going to be like, well, we got to find our Deion. We got to find whatever it is. Mm-hmm. The thing is, you don't. And Deion he is who he is. Mm-hmm. He's just like he's special. He knows what he's doing. He's
the 8-toe genius.
Yeah, he's a brand. He knows what he's doing. So it's just like it's like my concern are for like coaches like Napier who are in their third year are going to be going into their third year. He's in the second year this year, but he'll be going into his third year going into this next year. And if Florida has another losing season, like that's gonna be one of those like tough conversations of like, well, did we let Napier go? Or, because there's no excuse at this point. He should be able to use the transfer portal the way that you're supposed to.
I mean, Florida is a school that people would want to go to.
Yes.
Like, it's not a no-name school.
There's still a top 4 school for 2024 recruits.
Yeah, it's not a no-name school. It's not like you're in the middle of nowhere. Like,
Deion is definitely...
It's a school with a legacy, so it's like...
Deion is definitely messing up this, like...
The playing field.
The playing field's here going like, oh, look what I can do. And it's like,
with a school like Colorado, like doesn't have anything, no pool, no nothing.
Yeah.
And look what I did.
But he's right now just an exception that does not prove the rule. Like he's not, he's completely, did I mess that up?
No, I just think it's Deion is the exception that doesn't prove the rule.
Yeah.
Matt Rule. I mean, it's just.
That's true. That was an unintended pun.
Right.
Only the dad caught that one. That makes sense.
I love dad jokes.
Hey, man, they're great. They're great. Mm-hmm. But what stinks with dad jokes though, whenever someone tries to burst your bubble about them.
Oh man. So listen, Colorado. You both know this. Like, I like Deion.
Yeah.
I give him a hard time about his 8 toes, and I give him a hard time about all this, but I really got to talk about the Colorado fans right now. So, like, Colorado fans, I'm talking to you. Okay, I don't want to burst your bubble. Okay, but Deion, Colorado players, especially fans, you're talking about all this disrespect that you're getting, right? Yeah. You're talking about, they're doubting our success. They're doing all this. And I'm kind of thinking back, right? Colorado, you have Deion. Things are changing for you. They're looking a lot better. Congratulations. I really hope that this goes well for you. The last 4 years, you've had one winning season.
Yep.
That winning season was during the COVID year that was shortened, and your win-loss total was 4-2. You beat UCLA, Stanford, San Diego State, and Arizona, and then lost to Utah and Texas in the Alamo Bowl. Well, Utah and Texas in the Alamo Bowl.
I was going to say, like,
you lost to different teams
tag
in the
team,
Alamo Bowl.
Tag team. So other than that, you have
I think
gone...
anybody would lose at that.
Yeah. Other than that, you've gone 1-11, 4-8.
Yep.
And I think 5-7. So listen, all of your doubters have every right to doubt that this is going to be a sustained thing.
Yep.
And it's up to Deion and it's up to his players to prove them wrong. Okay?
Exactly.
You're rushing the field. And here's the thing. This is where I'm going to burst your bubble, okay? You're rushing the field after beating Nebraska. Okay? That does not look like the thing that a great football team does. So Duke rushed the field after beating Clemson.
That's
who was
rivalry.
Who was high on the horse. They were looking good.
Yep.
They were in the top 10. They were supposed to be this great team. They've got that right.
Yep.
When you beat Nebraska, come on now. Don't rush the field. Pretend like you got a little bit of respect for yourself.
Yeah.
Move on to the next game. Prove that you are who you say you are, and let everybody else eat their words.
Oh, yeah.
So I hate to burst your bubble, Colorado, but reel it in.
Yeah.
Reel it in.
Because if you don't, then you're going to end up having to eat humble pie like we're about to have to eat. Because this past week, unlike last week where we were 66% accurate with our upsets, this week we were 0% accurate with our upsets. And now Dennis will sit here and claim that he had some accuracy with his upsets, but he didn't actually make those upsets.
You can check the group chat. My stuff was accurate.
Group chat is not this program, and so you cannot sit there and claim.
I'll take screenshots to be able to say, like, I have pictures to prove it.
That's going to be up to the editor to put those in there, and I can tell you
I don't trust him. I don't trust him.
He is not going to put
He believes UT is Tennessee, not Texas. I'm just saying.
Well, it was established first, so.
Who's the better team right now? Who's the better ranked team? I'm just saying.
Listen, we're not going to get
Either way.
Who's orange and who has the Manning?
We're not going to get into rankings right now.
Typical Tennessee fan.
No, just because of the fact that Alabama shouldn't be in the top 10, but that's just a different conversation. Which really, maybe they can edge out the top. They can edge into the top 10, but Notre Dame still doesn't deserve to be there.
No.
They're number 9. And again, I don't have a problem with Tennessee dropping out of the top 10 because they performed relatively terribly against Austin Peay. Relatively terribly. They still won their game. So that's important.
Doesn't mean you didn't play terribly. Not relatively. Doesn't have to be included.
It was relative to that game.
Yeah. And that sucks. So you play
Anyway,
that small.
we're going to continue on. But we did not. Any of our upsets we did not have this past weekend, so we're upset. So we're going to have to. Or I specifically, I'm going to have to eat a lot of humble pie.
But that's okay because here's the thing.
Yeah.
While you're eating some humble pie and you weren't right on some upsets.
Yep.
There are some teams who are feeling really bad about themselves right now.
It's true.
Because they had a victory and they snatched defeat right out of the jaws of victory.
Yeah.
Right? Part of me wanted to say, that this implosion was going to be, Texas A&M versus Miami. But like we talked about, Texas A&M really played a pretty good game, right? They did a good job. Alabama losing to Texas wasn't really an implosion. Alabama just got outplayed. You can't really call that an implosion.
Yep.
Now, sometimes I really hate to go outside of the Power Five, but on this one, I really had to
it's understandable.
venture out because if we go to the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, which I don't know if everybody even knows that is a conference.
It's the best conference.
We have
They're
Morgan.
middle like athleticism right there. Just in the middle
a
of
little
athleticism.
We have Morgan State, who nearly beat Akron. Okay, but they lost in in my opinion, one of the most
familiar with that state, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know Morgan State. Yeah, that sounds like a cappuccino girl.
Morgan State.
They lost in one of the most possible ways. So Akron was down by 4 with 1:15 to go. They were in the red zone, and they throw an interception.
All right.
Okay, Akron has 2 timeouts. So any coach would do what? Hey, we're going to run the ball. Hey, guys, run the ball, which they did. They ran the ball twice. Akron called timeouts. And then on 3rd and 9, Akron is out of timeouts. The running back takes the handoff. Morgan State running back runs to the left, gets hit in the backfield, and fumbles.
Oh, does the thing you're not supposed to do.
Does the one thing that can lose the game. To which the Akron linebacker picks up the ball, runs in for a touchdown.
Scoop and score.
Scoop and score. So Morgan
really
State.
That's an accent. I feel like there was an accent there.
Scoop and score.
Yeah, it really sounded that way.
It's a
Little
kind of
Minnesota.
a Canadian, like a Minnesota kind of Canadian.
Minnesota, that northern accent.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where it's like, I've watched football, you've coached football, you've played football. We all know, like, that is the perfect scenario for a victory.
Yep.
The only way you lose that game is to implode, which their running back did. And
honestly, like, that's the thing is, like, Akron might be an FCS team, but they consistently give trouble to FBS teams all year long.
They've given trouble to Ohio State in the past.
Yeah. I mean, like, they gave trouble to Georgia last year. So I think it was Georgia. No, that was Kent State. Sorry. They gave trouble to Tennessee last year.
Yeah.
Akron was Tennessee. And they were the ones that injured Tillman.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They like to tackle low, a little too low for comfort.
Little ankle biters, man.
Yeah. there's some names that some Tennessee fans call them, and I'm not going to repeat it here. But again, there's still a team that consistently seems to just finds a way to not quite upset a team, but an FBS team, they find a way to get the best out of an FBS team. And that says something that's kind of like an Appalachian State or something like that. Yeah. Like, you just can't ever look past them. Yep. And so the fact that they're kind of the top dogs of their conference in that regard, like, you know, a true FCS team like Morgan State, who, you know, we literally don't know and sounds like a cappuccino like maker for Starbucks. I think they call them baristas.
Something like that.
And the fact that they almost won and it was that close, shows the parity.
Yeah. And just fall on the ball. I mean,
just fall on the ball.
Just, you see somebody coming, just fall down. You're going to win the game.
Just fall down. That's the wisdom of the week. Just fall down.
Just fall down.
If you feel like you're gonna win, just fall down.
But listen, we're going from implosions. We got to go into some bad calls.
Oh man, there were so many bad calls this weekend.
There was a lot of bad calls. I mean, you guys were texting me. Some of the bad calls.
So like my bad call. Now, this is not going to be an official bad call because this is your segment. But one of mine was the fact that literally in the Tennessee versus Austin Peay game, you've got a guy who catches a ball from Austin Peay, takes multiple steps, changes the hand of for his ball, secures it in two different hands, has walked 3 or 4 yards and gets the ball stripped, and they call it an incomplete pass. Who in the world calls that an incomplete pass? That is the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, a bad ref.
Yeah, a bad ref.
And even in the Ohio State game, you know, I've seen 3 or 4 clips of just the Ohio State receivers getting mugged. And, you know, we want one, so it's I'm not going to worry too much about that.
True,
but
exactly. The same with the Austin Peay.
There's a lot of bad calls, and obviously, whichever team you're for, you're going to watch your game, and you're going to see a little bit more. But we'll start with the ref. With the ref. So the bad call in this one, I think, actually started off with a good call.
Okay.
Which is a little different, but this is in the Baylor-Utah game.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at the very end of the game, Baylor has this I think a long passing play to get down to the 22. Receiver steps out of bounds, 0 on the clock. You know, everybody's thinking the game's over, and they make a great call because the receiver actually, his foot landed with 1 second left. Yep. So they did the review. They go to the monitors and come back and say, hey, there's 1 second left. We're going to play this last game. Or this last second. So congratulations to the referee for making a good call there. However, the next call, ending the game, Baylor receiver his arm gets pinned down in the end zone. Obviously, everybody is looking. Everybody is seeing this go down. The receiver's arm gets pinned down. Can't make a play on the ball. And they call it incomplete. So for me, and I know there's a lot of controversy around this, right?
Yeah.
I personally believe that the refs are part of the game.
Yeah.
The refs are there to make a call. If that call is in the first quarter, the very first play of the game, or if it's the last play of the game, those calls should be the same. And if it's pass interference, it's pass interference any time in the game. Yeah. There are some people who will say, the ref can't make that call, right? The ref, that's a call at the end of the game. The ref's going to make that decision, and the ref is the one winning or losing the game.
Yeah.
I disagree with that, but hey, that's another point. But for me, that is the worst call made by a ref this week because it literally decided the game.
Well, and so when you sent that replay to us earlier in the chat and everything, and just looking back at it, I was originally I was like, I feel like they might have actually made a decent call until I saw something that I was like, oh wait, hold on a second. But I was just okay, they both are kind of fighting for the ball. They're both kind of letting them play. The refs were kind of letting them play,
which I'm good with,
which is fine with. But it was a screenshot. It was a still. Somebody in one of the comments went and he's like, this is why it's pass interference, and I 100% agree. When you have the defender's arm hooked around the receiver's arm so he can't bring it up. I was like, that's when I was like, okay, yeah, correct. 100%. Right. That is pass interference. His ability to catch the ball has completely been hampered. If both hands were up for both the receiver and for the defender, then 100% that's let him play. There's no pass interference, even if there's bumping and stuff like that, whatever.
So some hand play, best man gets the ball, like you go up for it. I'm good with that. But and that's where I was that arm pinned to the side with no ability to make the catch. You got to call that. Yep. And I mean, here's the other thing. Especially with the college rules versus the NFL rules. Yep. It's 15 yards, right?
Yes.
15 yards, first down, another play. So you're still not taking the ref is not winning or losing the game.
No,
you're just giving
them
another opportunity to run a play. Yep. So I think that's where I especially think that they should make that call, because if nothing else, it gives them another opportunity. Both teams get the opportunity to win or lose the game.
True.
They're not winning or losing it. So
yeah. And I get you. I get where you're coming from, because in this situation where like the refs were like, well, we're trying to make sure that the end of the game is not about us, that we're not deciding that game. We're not deciding this Baylor-Utah game or whatever. They were the ones that decided the Baylor-Utah game.
Exactly. And the worst part is like about this game is the fact that it was actually a close game. It could have been Baylor's game to win.
Right.
And so like I was honestly surprised that Baylor was even able to hold on just any part of the game.
Well, yeah, I mean,
exactly.
And like I think we went into it thinking like, oh man, like Baylor's going to get stomped. Utah, like even though Cam Rising's still out, stuff like that, Utah's still shown to be relatively formidable with their backup quarterback. But Baylor also
quarterbacks.
But Baylor is shown to also be very formidable with their backup quarterback.
Yeah,
and so
that's what took them away from me being like, hey, that's gonna be a good game to watch.
Exactly. And so like, because when I heard that, I was like, we're not even gonna put that as an upset, because
they shouldn't be this close.
No, it shouldn't be this close. Yep. But yeah, it was a good game, and I still think the better team won. But it's just
agreed.
It's just I agree with you.
Give them a chance.
Yeah, give them a chance. And Utah's defense definitely could have held up. So it's just like, why not? Why not test it? Let battle it out again.
Exactly.
Because that's really what it boils down to.
So let's move from the refs, and we'll go to I'm gonna head to the coach. And here's the thing about this coaching call is it's going to be nobody's probably seen it, and nobody's probably talked about it, and nobody's heard about it, because the outcome of the game was positive for the coach I'm going to call out, and everything around the call was good for this coach. So it's going to be on Miami, on their head coach. So there was a 4th and 1 with about 9 minutes, 10 seconds to go in the third, and he had to call. So Miami's coach had to call a timeout for having too many men on the field after they had just gotten done with a timeout.
Oh.
So not only was it a too many men on the field, but Texas A&M had just called a timeout to go talk about what they're going to do on this 4th and 1 play, allowing Miami to talk about what they were going to do on this 4th and 1 play. And apparently what they wanted to do on this 4th and 1 play was send in too many men.
I mean, that's a great defense, though, man.
I mean, you better stop them every time.
You're playing numbers, like you got him.
Yeah, but so you just took a timeout.
Man to man.
Man.
So you just took a timeout out of your pocket.
Yep.
For a horrible coaching decision, like we talked about last week. It's like that. Too many men on the field is just. I think the person you listened to called it a fireable offense from Florida. Yeah. And it's just especially after a timeout. You shouldn't have too many men on the field. Now, again, not going to be mentioned because the play after the play after Miami, Texas A&M had a false start, so it went to 4th and 6. They kicked a field goal, and then on the ensuing kickoff, Miami ran back the kickoff for a touchdown. So nobody I had a hard time even finding the play on clips, but again, it goes back to I think too many men on the field. It's
after
just
a timeout.
After a timeout, especially.
You have all the time to think about stuff and count literally up to 11.
Yes. Yeah, you could literally duck, goose them as they went onto the field, 1 and 2 and 3, but you can't do it.
Yeah.
So
well, and I agree. You've got to prepare properly for that stuff. That's just all procedural. you got to be able to count. You got to you got to make sure there's not 2 number 3s on the field.
Right.
You know, just little things.
There's a lot of coaches on the sideline that should like. I remember when I was coaching, we literally had one coach to always make sure that things like that was always accounted for.
1, 2, 3, 4.
It's just
oh
like,
wait. You just wanted to make sure they weren't from Southern Mississippi University.
Right.
Exactly.
After I get past my left hand, I don't know how to keep going.
How do you do 11 with both your hands?
Especially when I'm wearing shoes.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. And I'm going to throw a little just a kind of a wrench into our little order here real quick, because I know we consistently talk about like bad play calls, but I honestly want to talk about a relatively brilliant play call I saw this past weekend, which was Texas's play call from Sarkisian to hike the ball, but not to Ewers.
Yes.
That was a brilliant flipping play. Like I'm sorry, I was confused because I was just like, what's going on? Wait, hold on. And I didn't even know what
he's getting up in his business.
Like he's getting up in his business. But then on top of that, like the fact that the center backwards passed it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a fumble. It wasn't considered a fumble. No. Was it the running back? Or was it one of the
I think it was
wideouts?
a receiver.
The receiver.
Yeah. And he just takes it for a first down. And I'm like, granted, he barely got the first down, but he still got it. And the fact that was clearly a designed play. Yep. That was not like, it was not a mistake. It was a designed play.
Well, and you could see that when they were in their little conversation about like, oh, it was a fumble. And you could see Sarkisian, there's no panic in his mind.
He was calm.
It was
he
just
was
like, you could see him talking to the ref and going, the center passed it backwards to, like, he was just so calm.
He
like
literally had to coach them through. He's like, so this is how we do it.
Right.
And like, I just
obviously we're asleep.
Well, and like you see that like just incredible play call come from someone against an incredible play caller.
Right.
Yeah. Like that, like to me was like a coach highlight of the week. Like, hey, this guy, he kept his cool the entire game. And
Coach Shark,
like,
hats off.
I mean, straight up, like it was just one of those things. Like that's not like a segment we're trying to do on the show, but like, but I mean, honestly, everyone
that was a notable one. Yeah, it had to be mentioned.
Totally notable because it was just like, man, it was just such a. I was just like, man, that's strategy wise, just such a beautiful play.
Well, and one of the interesting things about Saban, is he doesn't know what to do when he's getting out coached.
Yeah,
like it doesn't happen that often.
It doesn't happen often.
It genuinely doesn't.
It was,
but when it does, it's almost like he doesn't know how to. He doesn't know how to coach when he's not calling the best plays.
Yeah,
when he's
like,
it
it's
definitely
really
frazzles
weird.
him. Like he's just like, I don't know what to do here. Like,
Right.
Well, I mean, you saw that on the sidelines against Tennessee last year. Like his visible frustration was just so palpable.
I mean,
and
that
hilarious.
game was so much back and forth.
That's great.
I was watching the game and I was like, I'm frustrated myself.
What's going to happen? What's going to happen? I mean, honestly,
and I'm not 70-something years old sitting on the sideline.
And I don't have a $20 million house in Florida that I could just go retire to.
And then another $20 million house, and then another $20 million house.
But I mean, honestly, and props to the refs there too for catching that
and making the right call.
Because again, like when I was originally watching, I was like, well, that it looks like that's going to go in Alabama's favor because But then as you continue to watch the replay, you're like, oh wait, hold on, that was a completely designed play to do exactly what it did. And the refs called it just like they should have. They should have taken the time like they did to review it. But maybe they took the time they did to review it because of something else that happened earlier in that game.
Yeah. Yes, I think they kind of learned their lesson.
Yeah,
and this is kind of where my point kind of comes in here. It's like just the hit of the week.
Oh yeah,
which by all means, Alabama's bound to have at least a good hit in the game.
Yeah, defense.
They were getting burned out a lot. There's a couple catches thrown by Ewers that Ewers.
Ewers.
Yeah, that Bama defense just couldn't catch up. Mm-hmm. They just couldn't. So I was happy to see they at least had one good hit. And it kind of, that's probably why, the refs just didn't, want to call anything for them after that.
Yeah.
And that was when the Bama player just obliterated the ref.
Yeah.
Like he just he actually, from what I saw, he actually gave the ref a concussion. So mind you, that's probably why the play calling probably was a little bit better.
Right.
Because like, what? like he's thinking clearly now. He doesn't have much time. Like things got knocked out of his head to be able to.
Didn't they have to pull him out of the game?
Yeah. He got a concussion. He got I think his face got cut up and everything.
Yeah, that's terrible.
I saw his hat come off.
Yeah,
oh man. That's usually for like a challenge, you know, like he fell right there in the field.
He went out of bounds right there.
And you like again, their refs will make bad calls in games and stuff like that. And honestly, there's a part of you, if you're especially a fan of that team that they're making bad calls against, you're like, maybe we need a longest yard them and like smack them and just, you know, and like, you're gonna call a fair game now,
right?
You know, and it's like but at the same time, they're not in pads. Like it's incredibly dangerous for them to be out there. And so like I agree with you. That was definitely the biggest hit of the weekend. But it's just like because it literally sent a ref to the locker room. You know,
he was out.
Like, he was gone. and like so hopefully he's doing okay. He's recovering okay. They don't.
No, I mean last I checked it. Last I checked the update, he was actually okay. He just
good.
That's how they found out he had a concussion.
Good.
Yeah.
So he sees the light. He's fine.
No, I hope he doesn't see the light. Go away from the light, ref. He doesn't go away from the light.
Turn around. Well, actually, if he sees the light, that just means he knows Jesus.
Yeah. Speaking of lights.
Speaking of lights, some teams are going to see the light this weekend, I think. So we're going to get one to our upset alerts. We got two teams that we're picking that I'm picking. I have to take responsibility for the upsets this week.
Yeah, after you gave me such a hard time that first week,
Hey, listen, I didn't give you as much of a hard time as Dennis did. So Dennis was the one that was really trying to drag you through.
You
the
was
dirt.
collective.
It was you.
collective.
Yeah, you guys.
Use guys.
Use guys.
What do you mean, you guys? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, it's use guys.
Oh, don't start that.
Yeah, you guys. Listen. But this week for upset alert, like I've got the first one that I've got is going to be Mizzou versus Kansas State. Kansas State I know is going in as a favorite for this game, but they're playing, I'm pretty sure, at Columbia, and like Missouri is, even if they weren't playing at Columbia, Missouri is still a great defense. Mm-hmm. They just had a similar game like Tennessee did against Austin Peay. Missouri just had that against MTSU. They're going to wake up. They're going to like. I that's one thing that I can be very confident on is that they're going to wake up and go, hey, you know what? We can't look past these teams again. This is a team we definitely can't look past. This is a team we have to take seriously. They're in the top 25. If we beat them, does that mean we should be in the top 25? No. But
they get some kind of level of respect though, especially in the in their own conference.
I think I think it was week 1 or week 2 we were talking about they have one of the highest returning production defenses in the country, and they were a top 15 defense last year. Put it in perspective. They held Georgia to 26 points.
Right.
And they put 24 points on Georgia last year. Mm-hmm. Now, we're not going to talk about what they didn't do to Tennessee.
Right. Just gloss over
that.
Well, South Carolina for that.
Hey, listen, we're just going to gloss over that too.
But the thing is sometimes that's the worst time to play one of those type of teams is when they're coming off of one of those, even if it's a victory. It's like kind of that moral
hangover.
It's like I don't necessarily believe in those like moral victories, moral defeats. Like you either win or lose. However, when you didn't play up to your standard, and then you're going into another game against a team that's a little bit bigger, Kansas State.
He's only saying that because he's an Ohio State fan, and they kind of sucked the first 2 weeks.
Well, we're breaking the quarterback, and either way,
unload all the excuses.
Right? Yeah. Let me
go ahead.
Ohio State fans, comment below on all of our excuses why we haven't been doing well.
Yeah, everyone just comment below.
Yeah, we need
all of Ohio State's excuses.
Not everybody. I don't want to cry tonight or anytime, but. Anyway, let's move past Ohio State now.
Let's not talk about it.
But they didn't play up to their standards.
Exactly.
And they're about to play a team who may look past them. They're going to take a step or 2 steps forward after not playing to what they want to do.
Exactly.
So,
and again, I think it would be a good feather in their cap to go, hey, you know what? We're going to beat the literal Big Ten champ last year. And again, it's a good Kansas State's a great team, just all
not
around.
Big 10.
Not
Big 12.
Big 12.
Yeah.
Big 12. Did I say Big Ten? Dagnabbit.
You got Ohio State on your mind.
I do have Ohio State on my 9. Oh, just said Ryan Day. Just thinking about him. Just flowing locks of bald hair. He's bald, right?
No.
Oh, no, dang it. I'm just getting everything wrong tonight.
This guy's different. He's the same guy.
He's messing with my
He's blinding.
my
He's blinding.
He's messing with my perception of Ohio State.
The lighting I say is just too
Not
good.
everybody on Ohio State is bald because I am.
That's why he agrees with the team so much.
No.
Okay.
Anyways, let's
Mizzou's
move
gonna
on.
be Kansas State.
Yeah.
I do want to say though, I feel like Missouri though is probably also playing for the conference for SEC. SEC has been embarrassed.
Yeah.
I feel like the past couple of weeks.
True.
And I feel like not only just for them, but if they win this, it's like okay. Even though Missouri's not our best team here in SEC, there's something that still could be represented.
Well, they're still one of the
Right.
best defenses in the country, and that's
that's
the
one
thing
thing,
that can
yes.
speak for itself.
Yeah.
It's if they can really kind of shut down Kansas State's offense and actually do their job.
It puts the school itself on the map.
Yeah, and
Just
and
gives them
Missouri
respect.
Missouri is actually a really big contender for a lot of recruits right now
Yeah.
because of the fact that they just passed a new law that makes it easy to get NIL money almost immediately if they commit to Missouri.
I was born in the wrong time.
And I mean, for real, man.
I mean, I wasn't that good, but still, like.
So it's the fact that like there's a lot of big recruits going to Missouri because of the fact that there's just such good NIL potential there, and so.
I just feel like they could just confuse me. Yeah, you want to come to Columbia? No, not that one.
Yeah, fair enough. Anyways, but the second game I've got is again another SEC team, but I see this SEC team potentially being upset, which is going to be Georgia Tech versus Ole Miss, and the reason being is because Ole Miss has to play Alabama the following week.
Scary game.
And Lane Kiffin loves to look ahead. That's one
He
of the
does.
things. Look ahead, Lane.
I mean, he's never in the present. He leaves his present every single time.
That's kind of one of his calling cards.
Yeah.
And so it's one of
Leaving?
those yeah, leaving. That's as
just
a
a big
Tennessee
leaver,
fan, I
man.
understand.
Leaving Lane.
Yeah. And so it's one of those things like I think that if they don't keep their focus properly, Georgia Tech, who is not an FBS team,
No.
or not an FCS team, I'm sorry.
I was like,
they are not
he
an
is.
No.
It's been a day. It's been a day. They are not an FCS team. They're an FBS team that actually has some good D1 talent. I mean, we saw that against Louisville last week. And so, like, the fact that they could potentially come in, they could really do some crazy upset.
Yeah.
And Ole Miss almost looked past Tulane. They didn't. And honestly, if Tulane's actual quarterback was playing, probably
Yeah, they
would
might
have
have.
lost that game.
Yeah.
Oh,
And so it's one of those things that Ole Miss, if they're not careful, if their team's not careful, they could easily get caught with their pants down, and Georgia Tech could have a lot of fun. And that would just be another bad weekend for the SEC in that regard, because again, it just shows the SEC has been making some hires on the coaching side that literally just they're not prepping their kids right.
Right.
And they're not getting. I mean, even after week 1 with LSU, FSU, like one of the things that was kind of the resounding thing from LSU was like, our guys just thought we were just going to come in and just destroy FSU.
yeah.
Why? Why? Like, that makes absolutely no sense. Why would we? Like, they're a good team. We can't assume that we're going to do that to them. So it's just one of those things. Like, I think SEC teams in general, like even though they have arguably one of the toughest conferences,
Yep.
just from a standpoint of the roster that's in the conference, it's just one of those things. Like, you can't just because you're in the toughest conference or whatnot right now, doesn't mean that it's one going to always be the toughest conference,
Right.
And two, doesn't mean that you have to take your out of conference games lightly.
Well, and this is one thing that I've said for a long time is, SEC has been the toughest conference for, I mean, let's just call it the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Easily, I would say that, yeah.
10 years.
Yeah.
Sure.
There was a time when the Big 10 was the toughest conference. There was a time when the Big 12 was the toughest conference.
In a time with the Pac-10, and when it was before the
Right,
Pac-12.
before it was the Pac-12. So, like,
Before it was before it was the Pac-2.
Right. There are ebbs. Yeah. There are ebbs and
Pac-2's
flows
would be good.
in all of this. And I think especially with NIL, you're
Yeah.
going to see teams like Missouri who are going to get some recruits because, hey, they can make more money going to Missouri. So we're really seeing, and I think it's kind of like a culture shock almost to the SEC to have one of these weekends where it's like, oh man, like the past 2 weeks we've not done very well.
No, like,
Yeah.
So
it's just games they've like either if they win they struggled,
right,
and if they lose, it's like you guys are on just TV and everybody's able to see you guys in these games that you guys should have easily won.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how they respond, but it's also one of those things like, is this kind of the evening out of the playing field where we're going to start seeing teams from all these different conferences start to kind of level up to Alabama's. Yeah. Alabama, SEC.
I mean, they were the ones that basically,
they were the ones
past
that started
10 years.
Yes.
Like,
so, but now Georgia.
Schools.
So it's going to be interesting.
Well,
and
it just kind of going into that, we're about to just hit some recruiting stuff. And the thing is, too, like I was reading something the other day where people were like, normally it used to be like 10 years ago, like what you're talking about, used to be, hey, if you wanted to be on the best team, you played for Alabama. And so you would sit 3 deep on Alabama's bench, just for the hope and dream to one day be able to play for Alabama.
And hoping that they don't get some freshman stud that outplays you.
And so now with NIL and the transfer portal, it's just like, okay, you know what? If I can beat out some of these guys at Alabama, I can beat out anybody else at anywhere else.
Right.
So might as well just transfer somewhere else and just play somewhere else and actually be able to be a starter.
I mean, a lot of people did that. So
get the money and then be seen every single week and put highlights up every single week and then get drafted.
Exactly. So,
but speaking of that, like let's go into this recruiting stuff.
Yeah.
We especially during the year, we only kind of hit on some really big ones.
Yeah, of course.
That come out through. But Texas Tech just at least got a verbal commitment from a stud. This is their first 5-star prospect in a while. I don't even know how long it's been, but he's not
just a 5-star. He's also like top 25 kind of 5-star.
Yeah, he is the number 9 recruit.
There you go.
In the 2024 class, and that is Hudson. Let's see, what's his first name? Micah Hudson. So he's a receiver. He's 6 foot, 190 pounds. But I think the impressive thing, and this is what I think we're going to start seeing more and more, is that when you look at the guys, the teams that he had offers from, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, LSU, Michigan, Notre Dame, Texas A&M. Texas Tech has his verbal commitment. Now, I think it's like December when they start making their signing, when they actually do their signing. But like, good on you, Texas Tech. Like, I think you had his father went to Texas Tech. Yeah. So like, they had a little bit maybe of an upper hand, a legacy type thing.
True.
Maybe NIL is kind of playing in on that because, playing time, whatever. But to beat out some of those big names, especially like, again, here's where my Ohio State's going to shine. When you got the receiver room that Ohio State has, what's that?
I said all this time I thought it was your head.
It was, it's not my hair. But the receiver room that Ohio State has, and just the Brian Hartline connection, that just every year they're pumping out two receivers to the NFL.
Yep.
Good for you, Texas Tech. I hope that works out. I hope that in December he's signing for you, because that could really change the course of Texas Tech's future.
Yeah, I mean, it moves up their overall class to number 23 in the nation. So definitely a big boost.
Yeah, which is awesome. And the other recruiting update we had, and this is relatively big on the Tennessee side, is that Boo Carter. Sorry, didn't mean to scare you.
Sorry.
Yeah, and he's a Boo Carter. He's one of the commits, verbal commit to UT, Tennessee. Thank you. I have to just keep on doing that. Anyways, he's supposed to be taking some visits with Colorado, and again, he's one of those people that has said that he'd prefer to be more of a dual threat, and so he's seeing what Travis Hunter's doing and stuff like that at Colorado. So he's going to try to see if he can maybe leverage some of his dual threat capability and get something from maybe Dion or whatnot. I also see that as a potential where he might be trying to get some NIL money or leverage a dual threat type position at Tennessee, which I think Heupel would be down for something like that. I don't think he's opposed to something like that. And
I think with Heupel's system, it's really easy to implement a dual threat quarterback. I mean, when you've got the passing game the way that they're doing, it's like, hey, if nobody's open and you can get 15 yards,
sure.
Go.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, go for it.
Exactly. And the reason why this is such a big deal for especially Tennessee fans and for Tennessee coaches is the fact that Boo Carter has been very, very, very instrumental at getting other 4-stars to commit to Tennessee. So if he leaves to Colorado it could be very detrimental to Tennessee, who's currently in the top 10 in recruiting.
Yeah.
So, and again, it also very much could not be. You've got George McIntyre about to announce his commitment for the 2025 class. He's a 5-star QB, like one of the best QBs in the country. Actually, he might be ranked as best on 3, but it still doesn't change the fact that like Tennessee has got some great momentum, but this would really stall some of that out, especially on the defensive side, because that's where he was going to go.
Boo Carter is really creating a scary situation for UT.
It is really scary and terrifying, and us Tennessee fans just need to be scared.
No, but I think it's a very interesting, like, I mean, I can see what he's doing, and it's smart, and especially when you start talking about the NIL stuff, when you start putting that in perspective, like the leverage, like you talked about, leveraging some of the like, I could go play for Colorado because this would be a really good opportunity. Like, who's going to throw some NIL money to keep him to stay in Tennessee? But the other side of that is, I mean, with what Travis Hunter is doing, like, why would you not kind of go and look at that? And also, go ahead. With the media that Colorado is going to be getting.
You can't argue with that spotlight.
Right. And
they're going to probably get even more because of the fact that they're actually going to a new conference next year. So on top of that, it's also going to be a benefit of all things too. Dion has also showed that he doesn't care what classman you are. He's going to want to play. I'm not saying like UT or Tennessee has any kind of problem with that. It's just like, it's kind of nice that if it's proven, a freshman has no problem kind of joining in over being redshirted or anything like that.
Right.
Exactly. But again, there's a lot of stuff is up in the air. We're talking about recruits that that their word doesn't really mean much until they sign. Until they're writing literally pen in hand.
I feel like it's more like once they arrive in the fall.
Yeah, it's they arrive in the fall,
or summertime.
But again, so it's just once they sign in December is really when it's going to determine things, and so. But that leads us into our first game of the week. We got Tennessee versus University of Florida, which, again, as a Tennessee fan, to me is the biggest game of the week. But arguably, it's one of the biggest games in the country this upcoming week. And the reason being is because it defines both teams' seasons. Tennessee's going in, first time going to the Swamp. Potentially with, like, I think they're actually first time favored in the Swamp in 20 years. But it's the first time they potentially could beat Florida in the Swamp in 20 years.
I think it was like since 2003. I think I saw something like that. It was
scary
crazy
that's 20 years.
Mind you, these players, some of these players were barely born.
Right.
So they're gonna be like, oh snap!
Oh gosh,
you guys have not won in my lifetime.
Now I'm seeing the gray hairs in my beard even more dominant.
The beard is weird.
But again, this is a night game at the Swamp. Swamp is an incredibly hostile place to play.
It's also humid.
And they're going to be drunk and pre-gamed a lot. Like, I mean, so it's just, there's going to be a lot of that atmosphere.
They definitely are going to be pre-gamed.
Pre-gamed.
Florida's a different, man. Florida's a different beast.
They're going to be pre-gamed.
Those bath salts are going to be kicking in.
Listen, I didn't ever say that I'm great at speaking, public speaking. I just do this podcast because it's fun. But it's, Florida has something to prove, but Tennessee also has something to prove.
Yeah.
If Tennessee comes out and it sounds like after this Austin Peay game, this terrible showing that they had on Austin Peay, they had a players only meeting. Milton laid shouldered literally all the blame for the terrible performance of the offense, even though he didn't have to. He did because he's like, I'm going to show leadership. I'm going to show accountability and ownership of this entire team, and so if that. Like that shows a great culture change and shift in Tennessee, which is great because that is not something that we've seen as a Tennessee fan. We have not seen in 15 plus years, and actually maybe even 20 years.
Yeah,
and so that's a phenomenal sign. Players only, which means the coaches weren't even allowed. That's a big deal.
That's what players only mean.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you think about it, like it's just one of those things, like the coaches who are usually the natural leaders of a team were told sit out. We have to talk. We man to man, team to team, teammate to teammate. Like we have to like really knock this out. And it's just one of those things like that. I was listening to some people say like this is like very reminiscent of back in like the 80s in Miami. Like Miami used to do stuff like that. The players in Miami used to do stuff like that when they were in their dominant days. Like they would have these player only meetings and they would just beat each other up and Texas did it last year. So it's just like, or 2 years ago. And so it's just like that's one of the things that defines the culture. If that's something that actually really does right the ship properly, you're looking at a Milton that went from being a mediocre SEC quarterback last week to potentially being a Heisman candidate.
Yeah.
And not just because of him, but because of the team that's surrounding him.
Oh.
And
with Florida,
yeah,
2 losses after 3 games.
Yeah.
Could be devastating.
Yeah.
Like this is to me for Florida, this is a must win.
Yeah.
Like
for Napier especially.
For Napier especially. But yeah, if you lose this game, you're now 1-2, and realistically your chances are just
I feel like even Tennessee would be in question though if they were to lose this game, because it's like you played a Virginia team that's literally with one of the just the bottom barrel of the team when it comes to Division I, and then Austin P, like you literally were pretty shaky that. So it's like I feel like they need this win.
Yep. And I think Tennessee's going to come out and dominate. That's my 2 cents.
I really hope so. Yeah.
Now for me, I think the game that I'm really looking forward to is Louisville versus Indiana. One of the things, like I've said, Jalen Lucas, he's one of my favorite guys to watch right now. He's had some crazy highlights, even against their first game at Ohio State.
Yeah.
He had some kick
of course,
returns.
You have to bring up Ohio State.
I had to bring it up. But no, here's the thing.
Let me sprinkle this.
One, the Indiana defense held Ohio State to 23 points.
Yeah.
Right? Now, we can get into all the quarterback stuff for Ohio State. Indiana's defense looked good.
Yeah.
They were in the right holes, plugging their, they were doing the right things the entire game. And I think that easily could have been 42. They easily could have scored 42 had the defense not stepped up.
Exactly.
Defense did great. Jalen Lucas got hurt in that game. I think it was a little tweak, but he had some amazing returns. He was looking really good.
Yep.
And then last week against Indiana, I want to say it's Indiana State, he had some amazing catches, had 2 touchdowns. He just looks amazing, and it's so much fun to watch him play. But then you've got Louisville, who is really hot, played really well against Georgia Tech, and came back and did what they did. So I really think that I'm kind of pulling for Indiana, but I think that's just going to be such a fun game to watch and see. And you got an electric running back on one side, you got an offense on Louisville's side that's just been electric and has looked really fun, and then you got a defense on Indiana's team who is really set up to stop Louisville. So we'll see. I think that's going to be a really fun game.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I feel like it's going to come down, especially to coaching at the end of the day for those 2 games.
Yep.
Yeah. But I think Dennis, you have the pick for an interesting game of the week when it comes to like defenses and offenses. And
I mean, my game is actually it's going to be Minnesota versus North Carolina.
Oh yeah.
And the team I'm favoring is actually going to be Minnesota, just because North Carolina just barely escaping from Appalachian State. I feel like they're just kind of like really shaky right now, because don't get me wrong, Appalachian State is one of those schools where you always got to kind of watch out for. But definitely, I feel like Minnesota's definitely going to kind of get to them.
It's going to be a fun one.
Oh, agree 100%.
Definitely. Cool. All right. Well, again, thank you again for joining us for this week's Tailgate. Join us next week as we continue to look forward to this upcoming college football season. And I mean, I'm just so excited. I can't contain it. That's why I just consistently
Toys R Us kid.
My words. Yep. But again, thank you again for joining our Tailgate this week, and come back and see us next week. Have a great night.